can read them if they want, but there was no drastic changes to the bylaws or to the EC or anything from last year.
Okay. Do we have a motion to accept the secretary's report?
Yes.
Okay. Seconded. All right. Well, all right. Why don't we just go through the reports? We won't have a vote. It's going to be too hard to do that. So the next item on the agenda is the treasurer's report. And that's TR McGrath and Andrew Menton for audit.
Yeah. So TR, I don't know if you want to jump in here just because you're on your phone, you can't really see, but to kind of build on what Chris already said, we had a quite a different year last year than we would normally have, obviously because of how things went. I think the big highlights are we obviously didn't have any tournaments, so we lost out quite heavily on the revenue related with the tournaments. And obviously, again, with COVID, we didn't really have time to have any other fundraising events. So that's going to be a big focus for this year. And, we did have expenses that continued to build up. We had a lot of, expenses early on doing the preseason training before we actually obviously went into lockdown and weren't able to continue. But, we obviously have a big year ahead where we need to figure out doing more and more fundraisers. And that's something we'll talk about too, in the next kind of half hour, 45 minutes. Nothing really to kind of point out other than massive thanks to Mike Audette for running the golf tournament and bringing in some much needed fundraising this year. And we also had a small profit on the banquet earlier this year as well, or sorry, last year in February. So those two events did contribute some funding, and obviously we did miss out on a lot of the cost and the income that comes from the tournaments, but hoping that we can get back to some of that this year. But there's nothing really of major highlight on there that we need to worry about. The costs do continue to accrue. And I don't know if either TR or Chris wants to add anything on that, but the big thing is going to be, fundraising this year, getting dues in, and really focusing on, our expenses to minimize costs where we can. That's pretty much it.
Let's move on to the next item, which is the president's report. And I know all of you have been just waiting all morning for this. So, I was thinking this morning and looked at some of the notes I took last year and what a difference. And this year, these are extraordinary times. So there's nothing that prepared us for what took place. When it first hit in March, we were all wondering how long it would take. Some of us thought it'd be over by the summer. Some of us thought, oh yeah, September we could salvage the fall season. Then some of us thinking, oh yeah, by next year we're going to be able. What are they going to do in the spring? Are they going to have playoffs or just some type of some other type of games and so forth? So here we are, and we're still under, kind of lock and key. So we don't know what's going to happen. NERFU, we're not getting a lot of direction from NERFU, and that hopefully that will open up a little. We're just in January of the year. So we are on top of it. The EC is meeting. We're trying to, be proactive. That is where we're at in terms of the rugby, the games and the matches and the actual playing of rugby. I think the club is still strong. We have a very, very strong, not only the players, but the social membership is very, very strong. We know we can count on just phone calls to a lot of people on at this meeting now, would in a heartbeat come in and help out. So we still are very strong. I think in terms of players, because we're a small team, small market, that yeah, we're gonna need to work on that. But I think we'll come around with that too when we start playing again. So I just wanted, Andrew's probably going to address the banquet, but at this stage, it doesn't look like the state is lifting a lot of the present restrictions. So that looks like it's going to be an issue, but that doesn't mean we can't have it at a later date, in which we would. Same thing with the tournaments. We are hoping that maybe we can at least salvage something late May, June or so. So we'll be looking into that. You saw the finances. We still, I mean, for what happened to us, we are still relatively strong in terms of finances. We have about 12 grand in the bank. That is certainly down from when I looked at the end of 2018, we had 30,000. The end of last 2019, we had 22,000. So we're holding strong on that. Most of the expenses that would reduce our what we have money in the bank have been paid. And you know, so I think we're still strong, and we do need your help though when we get some events coming up. Andrew's going to talk about the events, so if you could help out and participate in them, that would be great. Fort Adams, I mean, I guess one of the better things that could come out of this pandemic is the fact the fields haven't been used. So I think field 1 and 2 used to be was a parking lot. That looks like it's rebounding. Field 1 looks like it's rebounding. With field 1, we're still trying to get that back to what it was before. We're still doing the treatments and that, so we're going to spend some money on the treatments for the field again. We're still engaged in tenants meetings there, negotiation, discussions with Sale Newport on the parking issues, DEM. Fortunately, I serve on the Fort Adams Foundation, and we just started having meetings again. So even along those lines, there's been a lot of shutdown on, of course, the festivals, Sale Newport events, and so forth. So all I can tell you, EC is trying to stay on top of this, and we're going to, as soon as we get further word from certainly the city, the state, NERFU, and all that, we'll be reacting. So thank you. That's your president's report, and we're gonna move on to club notices and events, please.
Thanks very much, Chris. So just to kind of build on what Chris said there, you know, the EC is meeting. We're getting together as often as possible. We've been kind of hamstrung around what we can and can't do. And, you know, when we went towards the end of last year and the start of this year, our focus for this year is going to be around getting the club back together in whatever capacity that we can, right? I think Coach is going to speak to that when he talks. And this is just kind of an overview of some of the stuff that we're planning, but we're going to have to think outside the box. Anybody here who's on this call, or anybody who wasn't able to attend today, who has any idea about club events we can do, fundraisers, ideas for getting together, whether it be a small event or a big event, we want everyone to kind of step up and get involved, right? So I want to go through this kind of list of club notices event that we have, and I'll speak to each one of them really quickly. But John Hansen kind of stepped up and said he's going to help out running a poker tournament. We're going to do it online. We've been talking about it for the last couple of weeks, but we're going to really ramp up getting the word out in the next couple of days. It's going to be an online poker tournament. It's going to be a fundraiser for the club. Good way to get everybody together and social distance, everything like that. It's not just for the rugby club. It's for your friends, family, everything else. There'll be an email about it. There's going to be stuff out there. So just get involved. Something different to do on a Saturday evening. It's the night before the Super Bowl. There shouldn't be a whole lot going on anyway. So get involved, and it'll be a bit of fun. I don't know. I didn't see John on, but he's kind of the brains behind it. I'm not really a big. I don't play a ton of poker, but John knows how all this stuff works, and he has it very well organized. So there's going to be steps on what you need to do to sign up and everything like that. So that'll be coming out pretty soon. Any questions on the poker tournament before we move on? If anyone wants to raise a hand. Looks like we're good. All right. So the banquet. Banquet's obviously something that we earmarked to do at some stage. As Chris alluded to, that doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon, but we will attempt to do a banquet this year when feasible. TR is the brains behind the operation when it comes to any events like that. And, I kind of lean towards him and helping or letting him make the decisions around that, with regards to the EC. So we'll keep an eye on it. The word will go out. You'll find out about it when it does happen. When we can get back together, it's going to be a hell of a party. Let's put it like that, right? So we'll earmark that for at some stage this year when things get back on track. Touch rugby and team events. So this is something Coach will talk about during his Coach's Corner. But essentially, we are going to figure out getting together to at least play some touch rugby. Myself and Coach and Curb and a few other people have been reviewing the state guidelines around what we can and can't do. Making sure that we have a very organized plan about how we can get out and play touch rugby. We saw some of the clubs within New England in the fall getting together and play rugby, but we obviously want to make sure we're being safe and organized about doing it. We're talking about maybe doing a little touch rugby blitz on a Saturday afternoon or something like that in March, but we will have very definite plans in place to get the team together to play touch and maybe some other fun events. I keep saying paintball. I don't know why paintball is stuck in my head, but something like that to kind of get everybody together, right? And that the whole idea is just to not let rugby fall into the back of everyone's mind, right? And be something they've forgotten about. So, Coach can talk a little bit more to that when he comes around to it. The next thing is the 40th +1 celebrations, because COVID kind of rained on our parade with regards to the 40th anniversary. Somewhat similar to the banquet, we will attempt to do something this year. And I know I'd like to get, the likes of Sean and those guys back involved again, to figure out what we can kind of do in 2021 to earmark or kind of celebrate that event. So, once things start to loosen up and we have an idea of when we can get out and about, we will do that, right? And, we want to make sure that kind of committee that was formed last year that was, unable to do anything because of COVID, and we get those guys back together. And hopefully, Sean, you're cool with getting on board with that again and trying to drum up some events for this year. So, that's one of our focus points. The jersey auction, which is the next thing, is we have some old game jerseys that we want to auction off online. Again, trying to think of new, unique ways to raise funds for the club. We figure a fun way of doing it will be through a jersey auction. We're still figuring out the platform on which we're going to do it. Matt Kearns did a little bit of research into the different platforms we can use to do an online auction, and we're just kind of going through and figuring out which one to do it. But it's going to be a fun thing where people can bid on game jerseys and get their hands on them, and then they can put them on their wall like Andrew Kelly, right? And have a piece of the Newport Rugby history on your wall. Next part, actually coming back to Andrew Kelly, is the Quiet Hour podcast that I hope all of you got the email about, had a chance to listen to. I personally enjoyed it a lot. It was very funny. Doug's an absolute hero, and obviously Andrew, great job putting together. But I wanted to give the floor to you, Andrew, for a minute just to kind of talk about it and give a little bit of background.
Thanks, Andy. So yeah, the purpose of the podcast is to essentially capture the history, the 40-year history of the club. And obviously when we do that, we need to capture the characters and the stories. And so that's the background of it. Kicked off last week with Doug. It's had about 60 downloads, so thank you for listening. The best thing you can do is subscribe to it so you get it every time it comes out, which will be every probably couple of weeks. Tell other guys in the club about it, share it with family members, because it does, I believe, just delve into what Newport Rugby is about, and what makes it so special, which will be important moving forward, given that we need to focus on recruitment, and hopefully that's a tool to do that. Please share any suggestions in terms of people you want to hear from. I've recorded one with Mike Trainer, so that will go live this week. I'll use it as an opportunity to capture maybe Chris and Andy and maybe some other guys after this for a bit of a recap on the EC, so it can be shared with everyone who wasn't able to join today. And then we'll just keep rolling it out. I'm planning something at the moment with New Haven. We're getting a couple of those guys that used to be competitors to hear what it's like to be on the other side of the fence. And so I'll take on any and all feedback, but appreciate the support thus far and the opportunity to chat now, Andy.
Yeah, great stuff. All right, so I will just go ahead and get back to the list. All right, so last couple of items on the list should be pretty quick. Number one is the Six Nations. For those of you who don't know, it is coming up. Obviously, things are different this year. We can't all pop down and be in Six Nations mode at the Fastnet. But I did talk to the guys at the Fastnet. They're trying to figure out how they will be able to do that at to some extent. So I will let you all know. But obviously, it's the most wonderful time of the year. It's Six Nations time. Some good to be able to watch some live rugby. And then the last thing on it is USA Rugby. They're not doing a whole lot right now, but what they have done is they have moved their coaching and referee courses online, and you're able to now do the 100, 200, and 300 courses online, rather than having to go and spend a day doing it. It's all online. For those of you who don't know, the club is required to have a certified coach and referee in order to be USA compliant. Obviously, if there's anybody within the club who wants to do the coaching course or do a referee's course, the club would support and back that. And, we'd be very interested in anybody out there who's interested. We'll take it on board and we'll get it set up so that you can do it. So if there is anyone out there who's interested, feel free to reach out to anybody on the EC and we will support that. So that's the last of the club notice and events. The one thing after that, Chris, that I just want to, the dues, right?
Okay.
So I'm just going to share my screen again, just so you can all see it. So obviously, I don't know how closely everybody looked at the financial report when we were going through it, but one of the big reasons for the downturn last year in our finances was the dues, right? So the dues, there was a drop of about $5,200 in our dues collections last year, which is obviously a big chunk of money to a small operation like us. And in the last kind of 2 or 3 weeks since we sent out those couple of emails, we have got a lot of people getting their dues in and supporting the club. And at the end of the day, the dues is what keeps the club going. And Chris talked about the field work we've been doing. We want to use this opportunity. It's something TR and I have been talking about. TR has been kind of working on that field alongside True Green and everyone else for many years, along with other people. But we want to make sure we're using this time that we're off the field to get it back to where it used to be, right? So there's expense that goes along with that. We're going to be doing some fundraising to figure out, what work we can afford to do on the field within reason, so that we can get it back to that, beautiful field that it was 10 years ago, right? Just before they started parking cars and everything on it. So if you haven't already paid your dues, you can do it online. Keep an eye out for the emails, and thanks for all of those who have already done so and supported. And I'm going to pass it over to Coach and give him the floor.
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear. I'm just going to give you this. I'll give you the spotlight.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Good to see everybody. It's been a crazy year, right? So I think I was just thinking we started last January doing 1 a week at MLK. Then in February we did 2 times a week. And then in March we started to go outside for maybe a couple sessions, and then boom, all hell broke loose. So we'll take the ex-governor's verbiage and we'll call it a pause, right? So I think we're going to have a pause from last March to this March. And I've been talking to Andrew and Curbs, and I think I'd like to come out of this pause this March. I just think for myself personally, I'm just bored shitless in my little condo, So it's like time to get out, time to see each other, time to maybe have a beer at the field, or if I look at if I look at all the governor's reopening Rhode Island requirements, then there's no way in hell we're getting together, but we don't follow any of these things, right? It's not happening. So first problem we have is you have to be a stable group. We're far from a stable group, right? And then we have to test negative, and we have to have small groups, and we have to have all kinds of crazy requirements. But I think, and we can't have more than 15 people, which is usually not a problem in my experience with Newport Rugby. So I'm not worried about 15 people being too many. But I think it's so important that we as the club get back together. We get back together outside, doing something active. If we just get together, do some fitness, see each other, we can play touch. Maybe a little less Newport arguing during touch, because the way we argue might break some of the COVID rules as far as proximity and spitting, things like that. So I think we could still pull this off. We could probably, if we can't get together at Fort Adams, maybe we could go back out to Potsy Field in Middletown under the lights. Try to start small, start with once a week, just get together and get it going. And the thing I've been worried about it for our club is that our numbers have been small in the last year or two. And I'm afraid that COVID is allowing us to start to drift off like good Newporters that we are, right? So who's getting married and who's having babies and who's having grandbabies and who's changing jobs and moving to North Kingstown, doing all the crazy things that Newporters do. So I think it's going to take the whole club. And so if I'm talking to the old boys right now, we need you to come to trainings. If we have touch rugby, come out. Like I see Sean up in the top right of my screen. So we need Sean, we need Ronnie Smith, we even need Dougie and maybe CG, but we need everybody to come and play some touch. And we need every single young boy that we have. So we've been trying hard to stay in touch with the young guys. And we're just gonna have to, I think we have to gear up for the fall. There's no way we're gonna do anything competitively this spring, but next fall is gonna be it for us. And I want us to start this March, and I want us to build from this March towards next September. And that's pretty much what we have to do. But I really think it's a crucial time in Newport Rugby's history where it's going to take everybody to bring some enthusiasm and bring some bodies back out to training and get people going again. And as we talk about recruiting, but it's tough to recruit to Newport. We all know that, but it's impossible with COVID. So we really have to start, create a base, and then bring people to that base. And the old boys here are I think, are the best old boys in New England. And that enthusiasm and that love for this club is what's going to keep us alive. So old boys, I'm calling on you guys to come to training. If you want to come there and just bring Bud Lights, that's fine with me as well. Just come. Everyone needs to come to every training that we schedule. We'll try to start this March once a week as things go. You know, I'll be the proudest guy in the world when we break the 15-person attendance law, whatever they're calling it now. So that's my report. That's my report from the coach's end. I've had a really easy coaching year. It's been kind of nice.
All right, thank
All I've done is forget about rugby and rugby drills and rugby fitness. So let's go. Board snotless.
There you go.
All right.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you, Coach.
All right, cheers.
You
Cheers,
hit the nail
everybody.
on the head. And just when that recording, Chris, when you do that, just delete out the when the coach says we don't follow the COVID regulations and
Yeah.
lights and the Bud Lights at the field, please.
Hey,
What are you talking about?
what-
I'm recording it.
we can't
So
call ourselves rugby guys if we don't break some rule.
so I don't know if Captain is here. Brandon's not.
He was on. That's what I was just going to say, Chris. So maybe Fern, if you want to say a few words, if you're
Okay,
still
yes.
on there.
Yeah.
I don't have a whole lot, obviously. Wasn't really much of a season, but I'm looking forward to getting back into it. That's all I really got.
Get a haircut.
Yeah, you fucking hippie.
That's coming from
All
Sorrow with no hair.
He's just jealous. He wants some of that hair.
All right, now we're heading to where we bring up the new business or old business. So the club itself, the attendees, right now are able to bring up any business they want to bring before the body at this time.
Yeah, so if you want to talk, just unmute yourself and kind of raise your hand so we don't have a crazy free for all. But if anyone wants to say anything, now's the time.
Okay, no old business, new business, nothing you want to bring up before the meeting. Okay, so let's move to, I think the last item is the elections.
Yep.
So right now, we're asking the participants here, the board is once again going to recommend that the current slate of officers be reelected. That would include myself as president, TR as vice president, Chris Sorrow as secretary, Austin as treasurer, Matty Kearns as the match secretary, Andrew as the public relations chair, Chris Gaudet as the social member coordinator, and the two director at larges are Adam Medeiros and Steve Kirby. So I would make a motion that they, well, I'm going to nominate all of those individuals in the offices that I just referenced. So they are, I don't know how, normally we would get a second and vote on it, but why don't we, for the sake of, unless there's some objection from the body, just take it that they have been nominated, and we'll open the floor for any further nominations for president. Any further nominations for president? Okay. Let's go to vice president. Any further nominations for vice president? There being none, I'll move on to secretary. Any further nominations for secretary? There being none, let's go to treasurer. Any further nominations for treasurer? Okay, there being none, move to match secretary. Any further nominations for match secretary? There being none, any further public, nominations for public relations chair? Okay, there being none, any further nominations for social member coordinator? There being none, and any further nominations for the two positions? There are two positions for director at large. Any further nominations? Okay, there being none. All right, so I would ask, since there isn't one, that the secretary cast one vote for each of the nominated persons for the office, and that's your duly elected EC at this time. Okay, that is the.
What about Joe Boy? He's on.
Excuse me?
We said that, big worm. You just missed it.
Oh, sorry. We were trying to. All right, my bad.
No worries.
Okay, so that's the elections. That was our last. That was our last item on the agenda. And I'm just gonna ask once more before we adjourn. Is there any other old business, new business? Anyone? I know because of these Zoom meetings, it's tough. It's not like the same thing of raising your hand down the hall. So just give one last chance for any of the other persons attending this meeting other than the executive board to bring up anything before the body.
Chris, can you and Andy Menton stay on? And I just want to have a little recap chat
Sure,
when we, thank you.
sure. Okay,
problem.
the last thing, TR, did you want to, you came on a little later. I don't, I know you were busy trying to set up down there. Did you want to say anything?
Yeah, I apologize. I was at a funeral earlier.
Yeah.
But Menton covered, he and I have been through the treasurer's report, and I think he covered everything pretty well, and yourself as well, so.
Okay. All right, guys, then the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for coming. I mean, we had 22 people on this call, and I think that's fabulous. So, I mean, that's the spirit, and we're going to get through all of this. Okay, thank you.